If you had asked me a year ago whether I could ever envision myself standing before a room full of investors, heart racing and palms sweating, my answer would have been a resounding no. But life has a funny way of challenging our perceptions, and for me, it was the unraveling of my marriage that propelled me into a world I never thought I'd navigate. My name is David Langston, and I learned the hard way that betrayal can sometimes be the catalyst for unexpected change. Rachel and I had been married for 5 years, a union built on love, shared dreams, and a mutual desire to succeed in our careers. Rachel was ambitious, a marketing guru with an eye for innovation, while I was the creative mind behind our joint venture in the tech industry. Together, we were a force to be reckoned with. Or at least, I thought we were. The day I discovered her affair felt like an explosion in my chest, ripping apart the life I had carefully built. I came home early from work, hoping to surprise her with dinner and celebrate our anniversary. Instead, I found her wrapped in the arms of another man, their laughter echoing through the house that had once felt like a sanctuary. In that moment, the foundation of trust upon which our marriage was built crumbled, leaving me shattered. After the initial shock wore off, I was left with a decision to make. I could confront Rachel in anger, tear down the life we had built together, or I could take a different approach. I chose the latter. Instead of seeking revenge, I decided to channel my hurt into something productive. I would propose a business venture that required complete transparency and trust, something we desperately needed to rebuild. The next day, I sat Rachel down, my heart pounding in my chest. I have an idea, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. I want us to launch a new marketing campaign for our business. Something bold, something that will elevate us to the next level. But there's a catch: we'll need to be completely open with each other throughout the process. Her eyes widened in surprise, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. What do you mean? She asked, skepticism creeping into her voice. I mean that I want us to work closely together, sharing every detail of our decisions and strategies, I explained. This could be a chance for us to reconnect and build trust again. We'll have to rely on each other completely. Rachel hesitated, the weight of my proposal hanging in the air. Finally, she nodded. Okay, David, if you think it will help us, I'm willing to try. Little did she know that I had ulterior motives. As we began to collaborate on this project, I carefully orchestrated situations designed to expose her dishonesty. I needed her to understand the depth of her betrayal, and I was determined to reveal the truth in a way that would not only impact her, but also highlight the cracks in our relationship. Our project gained traction quickly, and the momentum fueled Rachel's enthusiasm. She was all in, throwing herself into brainstorming sessions and strategy meetings. But behind the scenes, I was setting the stage for her deceit to unravel. The first step was to involve a few trusted colleagues from our circle, ones who had no idea about Rachel's infidelity. I arranged meetings under the guise of seeking their input on our campaign. During one such meeting, I casually dropped hints about Rachel's schedule, saying, "I can't believe Rachel almost missed the deadline last week. It's unlike her to let things slip, isn't it?" I watched as the expressions on their faces shifted from casual interest to confusion. "Yeah, she's usually on top of everything," one colleague replied, his brow furrowing. I saw the realization wash over Rachel as she recognized the implications of my words. She quickly diverted the conversation, but I could see her discomfort lurking beneath her confident exterior. My plan was taking shape, and each conversation was a piece of the puzzle. Next, I strategically arranged a business dinner with potential investors, inviting them to discuss our upcoming pitch. The evening was meant to showcase our creativity, but I subtly shifted the conversation toward personal experiences and the importance of trust in business relationships. I dropped anecdotes about betrayal I had experienced in my career, weaving a narrative that would resonate with Rachel. "Trust is the foundation of any successful partnership," I said, watching her closely. "Without it, you're left with nothing but doubt and uncertainty." As we sipped wine, I could see Rachel's unease grow. She was struggling to maintain her composure, aware that her actions had placed us in a precarious position. The night ended with promises of support from the investors, but I could sense the tension hanging in the air. The day of our big pitch arrived, and the adrenaline coursed through my veins as we walked into the conference room filled with potential investors. It was a sleek, modern space, filled with the buzz of anticipation. I felt a rush of confidence, mixed with the thrill of the moment, ready to showcase our vision. As Rachel and I began our presentation, I carefully orchestrated the discussion, guiding it toward our campaign's core message of transparency and trust. The investors were engaged, nodding along as we painted a picture of innovation and creativity. But I had one final twist planned, one that would bring everything to a head. In the middle of our pitch, I introduced a new segment, one I had kept hidden from Rachel until that moment. We've developed a live feedback system, I announced, pulling up a slide that showcased an interactive QA feature. This will allow us to gauge real-time responses and ensure we're on track with our goals. Rachel's eyes widened, and I could see the panic creeping in. "What do you mean by live feedback system?" she asked, her voice wavering. I pressed on, pretending to be oblivious to her discomfort. "It's a system where we'll be able to receive questions from our audience, and I thought it would be fitting to allow our investors to ask anything they'd like to know about our partnership, our transparency, and of course, our trust." Before she could respond, I turned to the investors. "Does anyone have questions for us?" The room fell silent for a moment, the tension palpable. Then, one of the investors raised his hand. "I'm curious, what steps do you take to ensure complete transparency in your partnership? How do you handle conflicts?" I glanced at Rachel, who was now visibly sweating. "Great question," I replied, maintaining my composure. "Transparency is essential, especially after a significant setback." Rachel shot me a look of confusion, her brows knitted together, but I continued, keeping my tone light. "I think it's important to remember that trust is built over time, and sometimes it requires us to address uncomfortable truths." As the questions continued, I directed them toward Rachel, giving her the opportunity to speak. "Rachel, what's your take on maintaining trust in a partnership, especially when things get rocky?" She hesitated, searching for the right words. Well, it's about open communication, right? You have You have to be honest with each other," she stammered, her confidence fading. I nodded, my heart pounding. "Exactly. And what do you do when trust is broken?" I asked pointedly, watching her struggle to maintain her composure. Rachel's eyes darted around the room, her mind racing as she realized the implications of my questions. You have to work hard to rebuild it," she said, her voice shaking. Just then, another investor chimed in. "Have you ever experienced betrayal in your professional life, Rachel? How did you handle it?" The question hung in the air, and I could see the color drain from Rachel's face. The room grew tense, the air thick with anticipation. "Betrayal," she repeated, her voice faltering. I think it's essential to learn from it." I leaned forward, my gaze unwavering. "And what if that betrayal comes from someone you love? Someone you've built your life and dreams with?" The room fell silent as everyone turned their attention to Rachel. It was as if the world had stopped, and I could see the panic rising in her eyes. She stuttered, her mind racing. "I don't know what you're implying." With a slight smile, I replied, "I'm implying that sometimes, even in the most trusted relationships, betrayal can rear its ugly head. And it's how we respond to that betrayal that truly defines us." Rachel's expression shifted, the realization washing over her like a cold wave. "David, please," she started, but the words fell from her lips, drowned in the weight of her deceit. In that moment, everything came to a head. The investors leaned in, captivated by the unfolding drama. Rachel, trapped under the scrutiny of those we were trying to impress, could no longer hide from her actions. "Rachel, I wanted this pitch to be about trust and transparency, but how can we truly discuss those concepts when one of us has broken that trust?" I pressed, my voice steady yet firm. Tears welled in Rachel's eyes as she recognized the gravity of the situation. "I never wanted to hurt you, David," she whispered, her voice breaking. I was confused, and I made a terrible mistake. The investors exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of shock and sympathy. I could see the implications of Rachel's admission sinking in, the realization that our partnership had been built on a shaky foundation. "We can't move forward without addressing the truth," I stated, my heart heavy. "This isn't just about business, it's about our lives. And without honesty, we have nothing." Rachel sank into her chair, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, her voice filled with remorse. "I was lost, and I didn't know how to handle it. I never wanted to hurt you." The investors looked on, witnessing the unraveling of a partnership and a marriage simultaneously. I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak, knowing that the truth had finally been laid bare. As the meeting concluded, I turned to the investors. "Thank you for your time," I said, my voice steady. "We have a lot to consider moving forward." Rachel remained silent, her face buried in her hands as the weight of her actions settled in. The room felt charged with emotion, the air thick with unspoken words and broken promises. In the aftermath of that fateful pitch meeting, I knew that our lives would never be the same. The betrayal had exposed the cracks in our relationship, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But I also felt a glimmer of hope, a chance to rebuild, to find a way to heal the wounds that had been inflicted. As we navigated the aftermath of the revelation, Rachel began to take responsibility for her actions. She sought therapy and committed to understanding her motivations, learning to confront her own insecurities. I, too, realized that healing would take time, but I was willing to explore the possibility of rebuilding our partnership. In the weeks that followed, we began to communicate more openly, confronting the uncomfortable truths that had been swept under the rug. The pain of betrayal lingered, but I saw a determination in Rachel's eyes, a desire to make amends and rebuild the trust we had lost. Though our journey was fraught with uncertainty, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, we would navigate the complexities of trust and transparency, working toward a future that was built on honesty, understanding, and a commitment to growth. As we stood at the crossroads of our marriage, I realized that sometimes betrayal can serve as a catalyst for change. It forces us to confront our deepest fears, to address the cracks in our foundations, and to ultimately emerge stronger on the other side. And while the path ahead would be challenging, I believed in the possibility of redemption both for our relationship and for ourselves.